time to really make the public aware and people in the industry aware of our solution. That's the key right now, is make sure that they know there are sites that they're passing on in this industry for not installing DCFCs because they're stuck on the fact that it's going to take 3 years or $500,000 to bring in three-phase power, and they're not aware of our solution at this point.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of BRITElights. We're so excited to be talking about electric vehicle infrastructure this week and all the amazing things that are going on in Ohio, the Midwest, and across the country in this space. So we've seen tons of advancements being made in this space, and I am so excited to be able to talk to one of our startups today. But first and foremost, I want to introduce this month's co-host, Randy Cole, who leads up our electric vehicle strategy here at BRITE. Randy?
Hey, Rick, thank you very much. It's an exciting time. It is EV month. And, when we developed an e-mobility strategy and electrification strategy at BRITE, we talked about three things. We talked about vehicles, which everybody's following, and infrastructure and services. And, we're trying to cover all of that this month. And today's focus is specifically on infrastructure, right? Because once you get past the vehicles that are coming to the market, you quickly go to what's happening with the grid and where are these chargers going and what's happening. We've got a great guest today to talk about moving things to the edge, how we can expand where the grid works and what can happen. But I would just like to set the stage for that a little bit, Rick. It's going to require a lot more energy, but also energy where maybe it hasn't been used before. So you think about it, the grid itself, we're talking about 1.25 trillion kilowatt hours of electricity annually in the US, which represents a 20 to 50% increase over what we've used in the past. Wow. Right? But it's not where the power is coming from. And we have new sources, wind, solar, right? Power plants are being revamped. We've got more power coming, but how do you get that to where the vehicles are? It's roughly 7,500 kilowatt hours of additional power per household in the US. That's a lot of power, but Rick, it's got to move, right?
Yeah.
And one of the big things is when you get into public charging, where people stop, right? The whole concept of range anxiety. We've all heard the term. And it really means if I leave my house where I've got a full battery, life is good, and I'm trying to travel some level of distance, where am I going to get that next charge? There's a lot of talk about the chargers themselves, but how do you plug those chargers in? How do you deploy that much infrastructure? And one of the big things is when you have public charging, you want DC fast charging. You want three-phase power. You want to charge in 20 minutes, right? Like fueling up an internal combustion engine. You want to get a cup of coffee, as I know you like to do, or a donut or a pastry.
I mean, I do like my donuts, let's be honest.
You do. So. And I think that one of the reasons you have an EV, Rick, is so that you can stop at a bakery and charge and get donuts. I'm just saying.
I mean, I don't want to get too far off topic, but it is my favorite Amish bakery that happens to have a Tesla charger outside. And it's so fun, just the juxtaposition of an Amish bakery kind of in middle of nowhere, Ohio, and a Tesla fast charger.
Okay, you're daydreaming now, Rick. You're fantasizing about your Amish bakery, but on target is where do those chargers go? Three-phase power itself is normally for industrial, large commercial applications, places where a lot of power is used all the time. We need chargers in a lot of different locations, and that means single-phase power. And up to 50% of the grid in the U.S. is only single-phase power. So how do you get a DC fast charger and allow for public charging in places that the grid has not been built for it? And fortunately, I think we have a guest today who can help explain how some of that can happen and how Ohio is at the heart of it all.
Oh, I love it. You got to bring in slogans. So awesome. And I'm so excited too. I've shared before, I grew up working on farms and in that space. And it was always amazing to me, the amount of power that we would use. It was just like a regular house hookup, in that space. And so I'm really excited to just kind of explore today all the great technology that is being able to, help farmers, but also help install electric vehicle chargers across the country. And so We've been fortunate enough to be working with EdgeEnergy over the last couple of years as they've grown and pivoted and grown products and done amazing work based in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we're really, really fortunate to be able to have Jon Holland, the CFO and COO of EdgeEnergy today. So let's welcome Jon to the stage.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming. Thanks for being here, Jon. We're so excited to have you and to talk about your backstory, the organization, what you're doing in the market, why it's so important. But first and foremost, we always lead with this question, but man, electric vehicle infrastructure. What excites Jon Holland about electric vehicle infrastructure?
It's actually availability for EV drivers, not the infrastructure itself. I've been in the industry for about 8 years now, very passionate about EVs. I've helped scale up 3 different companies. This is my 4th in the space. I'm on my 2nd Tesla. I was an early adopter, pre-ordered the 3. My wife drives the Mustang, which I'd like to tell you a quick story. You mentioned Amish, and I got a little funny story when the time is right to tell you about that one in Amish country. And then when you come down, please bring some Amish bakery items. I'd love to try those. Being
right on the way to
Cincinnati, West Coast, Amish bakery sounds yummy.
Well, that's awesome. And so like I said, we're so excited to have you. On the flip side of this, there's a lot going on in the space. So what concerns do you have about electric vehicle infrastructure and moving forward?
Biggest concern, which is the opportunity for us, is, as Randy said, did a great job teeing up with the stats, right? 50% of the U.S. does not have access to 3-phase power. For those in the audience who don't know that, a DCFC or fast charger that would mimic a fueling experience that you would want from your ICE vehicle to charge a vehicle from 20 to 80% in 20 minutes or so requires 3-phase power. And so EdgeEnergy has a unique and proprietary solution to convert single-phase to 3-phase power. And that's why I'm excited about it. They reached out to me a couple of years ago, right after Thanksgiving, as an investor to invest in the company. They gave me the pitch deck and pitched me. I think it was the day after Thanksgiving. And I was so excited about what they were doing, coming from the space and having worked in it for a while. I recognized that, as you would said earlier, it's probably not the sexiest part of EV, right? We're not a network provider. We don't sell the EV charger. We don't, everything that people are coming into this as a gold rush to sell, but they're solving at the time, solving a huge need in it. And I saw that, everything that you would see as an investor from the pitch deck, which is the solution, the size of the market, the team, et cetera. And I decided to invest in the company. I decided after visiting with them to sell my house in California, overlooking Catalina, Palos Verdes, after 2 years of renovation. And that was a big decision for my wife and I, but we relocated to Cincinnati, Ohio to help scale up the company.
I think we have to hear your story about your wife's Mustang and the Amish, though.
Okay. So when we got here, one of the guys who was doing some consulting with us bought the Ford Mustang Mach-E. And took a look at that car, and I'm like, man, I think I could convert my wife to one of these. She loved it, right? Cute car, loves it electric. So we're totally EV now. And so we take it down to Indiana and Madison. We hear there's quaint little rural town, supposed to be really, cool, and shops and restaurants. So day trip down there. We get there, they're having a festival. There's like 100,000 people in this quaint little town. So we take off and back roads, which we didn't know was Amish country. And so here we are in the EV Mach-E behind the Amish gentleman in his horse and buggy. And we're on a 2-lane back road, middle of nowhere, going 15 miles an hour for the longest period, dodging horse poop. And I was just wishing that I could have a picture of that, because you can imagine that. Here it is, horse and buggy, the Mustang following behind it. It was classic.
One of the things that Randy actually talks about from time to time is, back in the early 1900s, the transition to internal combustion engines was actually talking about being cleaner because the cities had horse poop everywhere, right? And so that was actually an advancement to a cleaner city. In some of the advertisements was around, get an internal combustion engine car so we can clean up the streets and all of
It's
that.
the truth.
So it's really interesting to kind of be where we are, at this point in time. We have so much new technology coming on board, and I know Edge is a big part of that. And so I think one of the things that you mentioned that is important to note, Ohio and where we're at and our companies that we support, we spend a lot of time on the coasts courting investors. And it's so cool to see that you came based on being courted as an investor, and then you saw kind of an amazing opportunity in Cincinnati, Ohio. And instead of, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, you're overlooking the beautiful Ohio River now, which has been a huge source of commerce, since the early 1800s, when folks started to come here to Ohio for the first time in the late 1700s and whatnot. So I just think that's really cool. And I think something to note. And another thing that you said that I kind of wanted to hit on too is EdgeEnergy maybe not doing all the sexy things about vehicle electrification, but I think building things is unbelievably sexy. I just think it's really cool to build something in a meaningful way. And I'm so glad we've been able to partner with EdgeEnergy and help you get to where you are today. So with that said, I'll pass it over to Randy to just talk a little bit about the business and technology perspectives.
If I could touch on that a little bit, I love building things. I was originally going to be an architect. I wanted to be an architect. This is pre-CAD. And was going to be an architect from 10 years old till college, pre-Rex, right? Going to be an architect, got in, realized I had it's kind of that left brain, right brain. I had no artistic ability at all. I couldn't draw a tree. I'm like, I can design buildings, I can draft them. So kind of led into engineering, then so picked up a lot of the skill set about building things, love to build workshops. And I turned that into building companies. That's my passion is really building companies. And my passion is building it around the EV industry. And that's what's been so great about Edge and what it's like to be in Ohio. There's a lot going on in Ohio with other companies. We're, trying to, form partnerships with them. Irina from Electrata, they're partner of ours. They lease space in our building from us. So great partnership with them. There's other companies that we're forming that will, be announced later in the Ohio area that are in that space. So Midwest has got it going on, and I'm sitting in the Centrifuge Union Hall down in the bowels of it, where I guess they used to store beer. So kind of interesting. I can't find any right now, but we're looking for it.
Well, I'm sure over the Rhine neighborhood there in Cincinnati, you'll be able to walk out the door and find some beer. It shouldn't be too hard, but I love
so it's just a neat lab. It's a neat, incubator. It's great. I've been here a couple of weeks and coming in and working. It's invigorating to be around this. It reminds me of Plug and Play, which was out in California, which was all incubators and startups and just that environment. So, and then working with you guys you guys have been fantastic. And I'll turn it back over to you, Randy, because you did a great job on the introduction and you've been a great understanding of our company to explain it to others. So.
Well, I'm going to put you on the hot seat, John, because I think I've shared with you, I was in a public meeting where someone was talking about the new NEVI standards, which is the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, right? All the money that's going into putting thousands and thousands of chargers out there. And somebody said, you've got to choose locations where you have 3-phase power because no one's a magician who can take 3 single phase and turn it into 3-phase. And I raised my hands and said, well, wait a minute. You mentioned you guys build things. You're in the hardware and software business, and you build things, and you really can allow a DC fast charger to work on single phase, but without giving away your secret sauce or trade secrets. This isn't Silicon Valley. We're not going to have somebody grab your secrets or your patents from you. How does your technology work in a way that you are able to put a DC fast charger in a place it hasn't been able to go before?
So the company, I'll start a little bit because I think this is important, especially if you're in the green space, renewable, in this whole sector. As the company was founded, solving and you talked about it earlier, Rick, was on the on the farms. So a lot of farm machinery needs three-phase power to run, and most farms are out in rural America, single-phase power.
Yep.
So the company, Single-Phase Power Solution, was founded to solve the problem for water pump, irrigation, grain handlers, things of that nature for the farming industry. And then they were creating single-phase to three-phase power with a motor. It was a large 100 horsepower motor hooked up to a generator that then produced three-phase power. One day, Gatewood Robbins, one of my VP of Finance, saw, and I'm pretty sure we found the original post, this goes back a couple of years, in Australia, where they had a diesel generator powering a DCFC charging an electric vehicle. And that's exactly what the company was selling at that point to the farming community, was to eliminate diesel generators on the farms to replace them with the solution to produce three-phase power. So Gatewood, who's a Tesla driver, looked at it and said, guys, this is what we're doing, and pivoted the company to target the EV industry because of a passion and because it was a solution. So that was the first iteration version that came out. It produced 70 kilowatts of power quickly. Cars are coming out, everybody's producing, higher and higher power chargers, even though we don't have.
I want to interrupt you real quick, John. So Gatewood has one of the coolest names of anybody I've ever met, but B, we don't necessarily have to say exactly, but like, isn't Gatewood like in his 20s and was telling the CEO of a long-standing company, hey, this is an opportunity that you guys might be missing? And like, how important is that to kind of understand, but have a company culture where, talented young people can be heard and share their ideas and pivot the entire company into a new area? I mean, like, I just think that's so cool and so powerful, really, to hear that.
It is. Now, this is Gatewood and Ben lobbying probably Greg York at the time to get that. He was he's a farmer, but to convince that, I think I'm not sure what all went into that. Maybe you get that backstory, but I can tell you everybody in the company acknowledges that was his idea, gives him total kudos to that whenever we do the tour and kind of show that and talk about it. So I think it's really cool and that's a culture in our company. We're very open, very transparent with all employees. All employees have a seat at the table. We're shareholders we have options to all employees in the company. We give, it's an open door. We get the ideas, and every idea we try to explore, and we're open to it, whether it's, new ways to solve it, new ways to go to market. We're all sellers. I'm going out to the EV show as a CFO. Typically, you don't see that, but I've been in the industry so long, got a lot of connections, and, love to go out there and help, because the company's now pivoted to execution of it and deploying the product. So now it's time to really make the public aware and people in the industry aware of our solution. That's the key right now, is make sure that they know there are sites that they're passing on in this industry for not installing DCFCs, because they're stuck on the fact that it's going to take 3 years or $500,000 to bring in three-phase power, and they're not aware of our solution at this point.
So John, how do you educate like a location owner, somebody who's interested in installing charging? How do you educate them on the opportunity before them and have them ready to put a DC fast charger in or to use your technology? How do you tell that story? How do you explain to them what the opportunity is?
Right now, it's identifying it so we get the audience, right? That's the key. Telling the story is very quick. They get it, right? We tell the story to Duke Energy. They're in our office. We talk immediately. Light bulbs go off. Diamond Energy. Yeah, go through the list. People that are in this space and that's what attracted me to it. As soon as they told me what the problem they were solving, because I was at EV Connect and our business was installing the EV charging network across the United States. And I tell you, as the operations and CFO at that one, I would see deals that we were stuck because we didn't have access to the power, or sites were being chosen because of the power. And you would find sites that are behind dumpsters, in the back of a thing where my wife is not going to go charge her car, right? Or we were 3 levels down in a parking garage next to the ocean with no cell service, which if you're an EV driver, you'll know these things need to connect so that you can get authorization for a charge. So you get a cell service. So, it's an early industry. Mistakes were made. People came out. There's again, not the topic of today, but certainly there's others out there on the. You could have topics on the reliability and the uptime and things of that nature, but a lot of that really goes back to the root of it, which was site location. Now we have the ability not to be limited to that, so we have partners such as M&M that we've just recently formed partnership that service 9 states for the convenience stores. In my mind, I've always been, and there's a lot of people have different opinions of where they should go. But convenience stores is a natural fit. EV driver pulls in, they spend an average of $1 a minute that they're called dwell time. Especially in the early part, it'll be a market differentiator. Do I turn left into that station or do I go right into a station? Which one am I going to? Where am I staying at a hotel? Where am I, as an EV driver, I will make my destination decisions, especially now until we get, 5-10 years out and have this available everywhere. I'm going to make my buying decisions to where I'm going to spend when I'm traveling on those locations. Yeah. Do I go to Starbucks for coffee that has the Volvo? You can see that, right? Forming relationships, putting in charging at the Starbucks. So Dunkin' Donuts, like where somebody needs to compete and put in charging there. And when you're traveling, you got to eat. You got to go to the bathroom. So
even like last year or maybe 2 years ago now, I took my family from Youngstown, Ohio, down to Pigeon Forge in Tennessee. Everybody was like, how'd you do that in an EV? And I was like, I just put in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee in my GPS. And then I drove my car and followed that. And it told me where to charge. How do you drive to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee? But the interesting thing was like, do you have to stop and wait for 45 minutes and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, about every 2 hours with my 7 and 9-year-old, or maybe at the time 6 and 8, I had to stop for about 15, 20 minutes every 2.5 hours, which also is when my kids have to make me stop every 2.5 hours for 15 to 20 minutes for everybody to go to the bathroom and everybody to get snacks and treats and stuff like that. And so, but those were long distances in between. And I think one of the things from the Tesla standpoint, they've done a great job on reliability on their charging network. And they've also invested heavily before government subsidies were available for it. Right now, I think it's so cool and such a great opportunity for non-Tesla chargers to get in the market and to build in that space and be able to actually capture a lot more market than they have. And I think your technology, hands down, is one of the ones that is going to be one of the winners in this space, because there's so much need to get access to DCFC. And what you're doing is really unleashing the energy revolution for everybody, right? At the end of the day. So one thing I want to ask about, though, I know Edge, obviously they came to you as a potential early stage investor, but now as CFO, I mean, you and Gatewood and the team are kind of leading a lot of the charge on capital raises, right, for the organization. So as somebody that lived in Silicon Valley, somebody that lived in Los Angeles area, LA, West Coast, can you tell me just a little bit about the difference? It doesn't have to be good, by the way. This isn't a cheerleading show by any means, but fundraising in the Midwest, how much of your time do you spend on the coast fundraising as opposed to being here, even though this is where everybody's building all the products that really are transitioning the clean energy revolution? So just tell me a little about your fundraising.
Well, I'm going to be brutally honest, and you're aware of it. It was a challenge for us, surprisingly to me, in the Midwest, raising capital for a company that builds hardware. Yeah, Silicon Valley, software company, IP around that, SaaS, everybody, recurring revenue stream, everything that everybody wants to pitch out there. Now it's AI, right? So that's even moved on, right? SaaS, who cares about that? It's all AI. And you raise money on an idea. So raising money out there, it's always a challenge to raise money. So don't get me wrong. It's never easy, but it's an easier sell and it's an easier pitch. Came out here, we're raising money for hardware. We did have an unfortunate situation where at the time we had an investor, the markets tanked, everybody panicked, an investor pulled out of a term sheet, which is something else that typically does not happen on the West Coast. You sign, you don't burn it, but here it's a little bit different. They want to keep your powder dry, all the stories. That's fine. So we had to go back out in the market. We actually had more success raising capital from high net worth individuals, angel groups from, we were pitching in Houston and New York and California and Florida and everywhere. We really had little success in Ohio. Now, people are very supportive, Midwesterners, don't get me wrong, you guys helping us. But when it came down to who wants to write the check, it was high net worth individuals that actually were able to come to the shop, see the product, see it's real. That's another thing. It's not vaporware. When you're building the hardware, you come in and you see it. It charged my car. It charged my wife's brand new car. Like, that's how much I trust it, right? We're going to pick this up. My wife's baby. I just bought her, and we're going to plug it in. I'm going to let you plug it in and charge my wife's car with our product. It works. So
I've charged my car on it.
Yeah. So, no fear there, and I was surprised at how little we got from some of the VCs and incubator programs around here. I still think they'll come back to us. Because this was so funny, right? We're pitching this angel group, and the guy making the decision on us, he goes, don't follow me. All my decisions are wrong. I make bad investments. But he's the one betting us, right? And I'm like, okay. And he goes, yeah, I'm the guy that told us to pass on Tesla. This is in California. I won't name them. There's a big band of them out there. And his idea was, he's the one that passed on Tesla because he says, you can't, a software company in California, they can't build a car. We're just going to pass on Tesla. well, they ended up passing on us. So he ended up passing on us, which was our badge. I take that as a badge of honor because it means we'll be successful.
That's beautiful. No, and Jon, I think too, like, what you're sharing here isn't something that you're alone on, right? I mean, we have a venture capital network here at BRITE that we engage for our startups. We've helped companies raise over $300 billion or $1 million right now in direct while in our programs, and less than 5% of that money came from Ohio. We have to spend our time on the coast drawing funds, to here. And I think that is actually an existential crisis as far as it's concerned, because if you're getting your capital from the coasts, like you're building now in Ohio, but when you hit that next level, capital might want you to come closer. Like, and they got their claws in you at that point. That if you say, hey, well, maybe we do need to be in California, or maybe we need to be in Boston or these other places. And so I think that's important to talk about. Like, this podcast isn't about cheerleading. I'll tell you that much. I've never been great at that, but I've been good about having good, hard, honest conversations. So,
well, I never want to burn a bridge in front of me or behind me. Right. So and the biggest reason the ones that are here passed on us at the time, we were pre-revenue. And so hard EV, right? It's new to them. Again, when we first got here and I'm driving around my Tesla, my wife has noticed, she goes, you don't see a lot of Tesla drivers. Well, no, we moved at one point from Los Gatos, California, highest Tesla zip code owners. And I mean, we're talking the original Roadsters there, right? So she's like observing that. I'm like, no, honey, we're in the Midwest, right? This is a little different. They'll adopt. It's just, right. Like anything, it takes time for it to take on. So a lot of the investors weren't used to this. Again, this is Ohio. They build things like them. I don't want to use the term Rust Belt because I feel bad about that one living, because now I live here, but you can see that when you drive around, you go, wow, these old rusted, you get where the saying comes from, but it was from building things, right? And so this is a company based on the west side of Cincinnati that's going to build something. And they were like, well, when you have revenue, well, guess what? We deployed our first one, Detroit Smart Parking Drive. So here it is, deployed in Detroit, not here in Ohio. And Ohio did the first Nevi site, but we did our solution. We just launched that one. New orders came in. I don't know if I can announce from that company, but we'll just say they're a large off-road heavy equipment manufacturer. I kind of touch on that for a second. I won't mention their name. We'll come back to that. But back on the fundraising, right? So now we are no longer, I won't count, see if I can say technically, no, we're no longer pre-revenue, right? We've recognized revenue, but let's be realistic. Once we hit the $1 million mark, we still have about 500,000. We closed out our round. We successfully hit our round. It was a long slog, but we did it. Team effort. Everybody was on it. It takes, it took a lot of our time. Takes about people don't realize it, and it's true. It takes about 80% of the company's time in the fundraising. We got through it. We got our cut. We were successful at it. We still have a little powder left on it for another $500,000 for anybody interested, because in about another quarter, we'll cross the $1 million mark, which then we're no longer pre-revenue. And then we believe some of those investors, we would welcome them to come back to the table, especially high net worth individuals in the Cincinnati area that support other companies that in fact may be driving EVs, or in fact maybe own car dealerships that sell EVs. Again, not naming any names, but there's just a lot out there that could help us and participate in this growth stage.
So, Jon, I guess my job today is to, every time you start a story, make sure you finish a story. So, Edge is bringing forward some exciting innovations and new technology, but you're a piece of the puzzle. There are other companies doing things to improve infrastructure, prepare for where we're going with EVs. You mentioned you're working with a large industrial company that makes some big equipment. Can you tell us more about that story and how that fits into these pieces of the puzzle?
Yeah, so all of the heavy equipment manufacturers are electrifying, and that's going to filter out into farm equipment and help grow it out into rural America for the farms. And then heavy equipment used for government regulations are required for zero emissions. So everybody's electrifying. Those sites, think about that. Those sites are, when they're working on them outside, if they're working on a construction site, the sites, if they have electric equipment, needs to be charged.
Yep.
That infrastructure is not going to typically exist at those locations. So we can help make that site ready for charging for heavy equipment outside of just EV charging. Again, it's, EVs are one thing. When we say that, we all think of our car, but everything else is becoming electrified, and we can help provide that technology.
Yeah. Well, and
John, anyway, I can't touch on the customer because we just signed it yesterday, but you'll see.
Well, to that end,
we'll wait to hear more.
You'll hear more. Thank you.
To that end, though, I'm excited because I know when you think about heavy equipment, you think about like construction sites and stuff like that, but not everybody knows, but they're about to. Like one of the first companies that I worked for was in mining manufacturing equipment, and I can't imagine the day that we're coal mining with electrified augers and whatnot in the space and all of that. And we need to get away from using coal for electrification, but there's a huge industry for coal as far as charcoal and filters and like all of those things downstream that it's utilized for. And I just think about the day where we plug in a coal auger to get that out for those other different products from that standpoint. So
exciting.
It's fun to think about, and fun to think about like all of the things that we can do that actually makes all of these opportunities better, right? And that's what we're looking at from a product standpoint, is not only what does it do to be better for the environment, but how does it make your customer's life easier? And that's something I think that we're uniquely interested in the Midwest, in how we build companies, whether from a hardware standpoint or otherwise. Is like, yes, we obviously all care about the environment with these clean energy technologies, and we want to move that forward. But at the end of the day, we've got to build stuff at a price that people can afford it and people can engage in it. And so, I'm so excited for what EdgeEnergy is doing today and what you're building this week and all the partnerships that you're putting in place. But the future of EdgeEnergy is extremely bright. And so, we're very excited about the partnership and being able to help you grow, and, having somebody like Randy as your expert in residence and being able to partner, from that standpoint is amazing. So, I have one last question. What are you looking for from partners right now? What kind of partnerships are going to help move EdgeEnergy forward faster?
Really, the partnerships with the connections to the end users out there, or site hosts. You get to, right? It's a site host. It's going to actually have the charging station, because we don't sell a charging station. We don't have a huge sales force out there creating that demand at the site. Is why somebody would want to put in charging. So forming partnerships with companies that are out there selling that, and then finding those 30 to 50% of the locations that they're going to come across that they have the need 3-phase power.
Awesome.
And they only have single phase. People don't realize that. You see a convenience store, you think, oh, okay, or gas station. They must, if you were to ask an average person, oh, sure, they would have 3-phase power. It's industrial looking, right?
Yeah.
Very few do.
Very rarely.
So anything that we can do to spread the word, form partnerships, we're open to it. Contact Ben Morris.
Awesome. Customer acquisition, call Ben Morris. I love
call
it.
Ben Morris. I'll happy to make that introduction though. Reach out to me.
That's fantastic. So awesome. Well, with that said, we can find Jon Holland on LinkedIn, and we're excited for that connection point. And Jon and Randy, I just want to thank you guys so much. I mean, you both have provided such valuable insights, not only just into this market or into the product itself, but into the market overall. I mean, I know I'm leaving today with a better understanding for how we can tackle electrification for everybody, not just folks that are close to 3-phase power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, as somebody that grew up as a rural American, I still live in rural America. I've got a 13-acre farm that definitely doesn't have 3-phase power on it. I'm so excited that there's products being developed for me that can, make my farm safer, can make my farm quieter, from that standpoint. And we talk about that, but also more importantly, ensuring that I can drive anywhere that I want in the United States of America with my kids in an electric vehicle. So thank you guys so much for spending some time with me. And Randy, you got any last words?
I don't. I'm just excited about, how all of that future fits together. And, some point we talked about where Edge came from and where they are now in this EV space. But when you think about their technology and what they're doing, there are a lot of other applications. Again, EV is so important right now, but I think of the expansion and what that means as we try to expand broadband, as we try to expand technology. And it really does go both ways into urban areas where the power's already been tapped and used, in rural areas both. I mean, the whole concept around equity and improving things for everyone, I really think EdgeEnergy is one of those things that is part of the rising tide that's going to lift all the boats. And Jon, I thank you and Ben and all of the team, Gatewood, for all of your work.
EdgeEnergy, electrification for everybody. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's Bright Lights. Please smash that like and subscribe. That's what my kids say, is smash that like and subscribe button. That's what I was told this morning as I was leaving the house. It's like, you got to say smash that like and subscribe. So excited for you to follow us, and excited for you to engage with our content online on social media. And really, at the end of the day, I just want to say we'll catch you on the bright side.